Hi team, welcome to the 7-Step Sales presentation. This is Lloyd Lofton, and I want to give you a little brief introduction to the course before you kind of get started. I want to give you a little bit of background on why I did this course and what my philosophy is on the sales presentation. You know, when I started in sales years and years ago, the way I was taught to sell is the company taught me a product. In fact, that's what most companies do. They teach you a product. And then I went out looking for people that were interested in buying that product. What I didn't realize for several years is that by going out looking for people that are interested in buying that product, I really wasn't looking for people that were interested in having a conversation with me. I was looking for buyers, people that would buy the product. It didn't occur to me until years later that that actually narrowed the field down of people I could talk to. So I'm going to give you a couple of illustrations of what my philosophy is so that you understand as you go through each of the 7 steps what the psychology is behind this 7-step sales presentation, and let's see if it can work for you. So let me exit here. I'm going to share my screen with you. There we go. Pop this button up here. There we go. Now here's the psychology behind the 7-step sales presentation. You know, I really believe in predictable buying behaviors. I think almost everything involved in the sales process is predictable. Now think of this. You're a highly trained sales professional, right? But what else are you? Aren't you also a consumer? And as a consumer, isn't it true that you also make purchases? I would submit to you that the same reason and ways that you make purchases are the same reasons and ways that your prospects make purchases. I would also submit to you that the same reasons and ways that you don't make a purchase are the same reasons and ways that your prospects don't make the purchase. In other words, you make purchases from individuals and from companies that you tend to have some kind of feeling or relationship about. And I would submit to you that your prospects do the same thing. I kind of liken it to going to the doctor. So let's say that you don't feel well. You go to the doctor, and you go to Dr. A, and you describe your symptoms to Dr. A. You say, you know, I've got a headache, and my sinuses are running, I've got an earache, my body's aching. And the doctor says, Sally, I know what's wrong with you. You can have this medicine, you can have this medicine, you can have this medicine, you can have this medicine. Which medicine do you want? And then you go to Dr. B. You describe your symptoms to Dr. B. And Dr. B says, okay, child, I know what's wrong with you. He fills a prescription out, hands it to you. Just fill this, take it twice a day for 10 days, and come back and see me. Now, which doctor do you have more confidence in? I would guess, in my experience is most people say that they have more confidence in Dr. B. Now, here's the question. Why do you have more confidence in Dr. B? Isn't it true that the reason you have more confidence in Dr. B is because he diagnosed the problem and prescribed the solution? The problem with Dr. A is he gave us choices, and then the choices he gave us caused us to want to, what's the biggest objection you get all the time? I want to think about it, right? So the reason that we like Dr. B more than Dr. A is Dr. A gave us a bunch of choices, and Dr. B diagnosed the problem and prescribed the solution. So what does that mean in terms of the 7-step sales presentation? That means that your role is to be the professional. Your role is to be Dr. B when you're doing your sales presentation. Now, how do we do this? Let's go back to predictable buying behaviors. Let's look at a product that we all have purchased over the years, and then let's see if we can figure out what the predictable behaviors are in that purchasing process and the psychology of making that purchase, and see if we can assimilate that to the 7-step sales process that you're going to learn during this course. So let's go to the next one, and that is you buy a car, right? Everybody's bought a car at a dealership at one time or another. So you walk on the lot, and the car salesman comes up to you and says, can I help you? And you say what? You say, I'm just looking, right? Isn't that what we always say? So that means that we lie too. So as much as we complain about prospects lying to us, either on the phone or about appointment or calling back, whatever it is, I mean, you know the old saying, prospects only lie when they move their lips. The reason that we get so frustrated about that is because we do the same thing. So, were you really lying to the car salesman? I mean, a car dealership is a destination dealership, isn't it? I mean, it's not like you and your wife say, let's go out to dinner tonight, and you drive by a dealership, and you go, oh, you know, what the hell, let's go look at a car. You really go to a car dealership because you have an interest in a car. So when you say to the car salesman, I'm just looking, what, don't you really mean that you just don't want to be sold? Isn't that a real problem with it? It's not that we're not interested in the car. It's not that we didn't come there because we're looking to trade our car in or buy a car or get more information on the car. The real problem we have is we just don't want to be sold, right? Isn't that true? So we tell the car salesman, I'm just looking. And then here's what happens. You pick out a car, and then you take the car for a test drive, doesn't it? Now, here's my question for you. Before you take that car for a test drive, you get behind the steering wheel, the car salesman sitting in the car next to you, and right before you pull off the lot, as you get behind the steering wheel, do you adjust anything in that car? Do you adjust the air conditioner or the radio? Do you adjust the rear view mirror? Do you adjust the seat? Is there anything else you adjust? Here's what I would submit to you. What you're doing is you're adjusting the things you use the most in the order you use those things. In other words, you're making that car fit you. And then what happens is you take the car out for a test drive. Now, the irony of taking that car out for a test drive is, what do you actually test? I mean, do you pull the car over and take the wheels off and check the anti-lock brakes? Do you raise the hood and take the manifold off and make sure the pistons are working right? The truth is, you're testing that car to see if it fits you. You're testing the functions of that car, of the things you use the most in the order you use them, to make sure that it fits you, that you're comfortable with that. Now, the irony of it is, in terms of buying behaviors, is when you leave the lot, the car salesman always has you turn right. He has you go down a few blocks and then has you turn right again. He has you go down a few blocks, turn right again. As you go down a few blocks back to the street you started from, turn right, and then come back in the dealership. And the reason they do that is their insurance won't let you turn left when you leave the dealership, because most accidents happen when people are turning left. So since 80% of the population is right-handed, they have you go right, turn to the right. Now here's what's funny about it. You come back to the dealership and you park the car, right? Where does the car salesman have you park your car? Or a good car salesman? He has you park it right next to yours. And the reason he has you park it right next to yours, so you can see what a crappy car you have, right? Now, you get out of the car, you stand back, you look at the car, you admire the car. Do you go anywhere with the car salesman? You go inside the dealership, don't you? You go inside the dealership and you sit down at the agent's cubicle or at his desk. So here's my question for you. When you go into the dealership and you sit down at the desk with the car salesman, are you going in there to discuss which car you might buy? Are you going in there to discuss how much you're paying for that car? Take a minute to think about it. If you said you're going in there to discuss how much you're paying for that car, that's the most likely thing. That's what more than 80% of people do. And there's a reason for that. You have already emotionally taken ownership over the car you're buying. You've already test driven it. You've already made the car fit you. You can already envision yourself driving the car. You parked it next to your car. You already see why it's a better car than yours. So it's not that you're discussing which car to buy. You've already emotionally purchased that car. You're just talking about how much you're going to pay for it, right? And then what happens is you end up leaving the lot, paying more for the car than you said you were going to pay originally, because you made the car yours. You already saw yourself driving it. Here's my question for you. In your sales presentation, how do you help your prospect adjust your product or service to fit them? How can they adjust your product or service so that the things they use the most, they can adjust in the order they use those things? Let's go back to this again, right? You did that. You adjusted the radio or the air conditioner. You adjusted the rear view mirror. You adjusted the side view mirror. You adjusted the seat. What you did is you adjusted the things you use the most in the order you use those things. And everybody adjusts things differently. We always adjust the things that matter most to us, the things that we use the most. So I'll go back to my question. How can you help your prospect adjust your product or service to fit them? And that's the psychology behind the 7-step sales presentation. Your goal is to be Dr. B and then figure out how you can help your prospect adjust the things they use the most in the order they use it. So let's talk about that 7-step sales presentation. I want to walk you through a little bit of the course. There are 7 lessons for each step. And there's 1 to 2 or 3 videos before each lesson. The lessons are always also set up so that you can download them. So if you just go up here and you click to your right here, click the download button, you can actually download that lesson. A lot of the lessons have key phrases in it, but I just want to talk about how they're broken down. So what I start off with on here is over here, the approach. Step 1, the approach. And the approach to me is a little bit different than what you may think it would be. Your thought might be that the approach is when you first meet the prospect, how you get in the door, how you get in their office, how you get the appointment, and all that's true. But there's actually a pre-approach. And the pre-approach is the psychology of how you have structured your business. So I started off today talking about the psychology of the 7-step sales process. And I likened it to being a doctor and how you buy a common thing like a car. The pre-approach is also predictable. How you set your business up, how you determine what your market is, how you get in front of your market, and how you present yourself as a professional is all part of the approach. The approach is more than just knocking on a door, making a phone call, or walking in the business. The approach is all about the persona that you set up and the criteria you use to get in front of the prospects that are most likely to have an interest in what you have to say. Remember, the mistake I made, the mistake I think a lot of you make, is we get trained on a product and we go out looking for someone to buy the product. And what we should be doing is be proficient at our product and be out there looking for someone that was willing to have a conversation with us. And that takes us into the qualifications. Step 2 is being able to qualify prospects. And let's just define what I mean by a prospect. A prospect is someone who recognizes they have a problem. They're interested in solving that problem. They see you or your product or service as a solution to their problem. They have the money to solve that problem. They're willing to spend the money to solve that problem. They're willing to spend it with you today to solve that problem. To me, that is a qualified prospect. If that prospect, for me, doesn't meet all that criteria, I don't know that I'm going to take my time and energy to do a complete sales presentation with someone who doesn't meet the criteria of a qualified prospect. And I just go by the numbers. I go by the 80% rule. I know what 80% of the people are going to do 80% of the time. So I fashion a sales presentation around the way my prospects buy, not the way I want to sell. The qualification gives you the opportunity to set the stage so the prospect qualifies themselves. And your job during the 7-step sales presentation, during the whole sales presentation, is to sell the problem, not the solution. The selling the problem means that the prospect will answer questions, tie-down questions, inverted tie-down questions, trial closers, in a way that each benefit of your product, so you describe the features of the benefit, each benefit of your product, the prospect says, yes, that will benefit me. And that is the way you qualify a prospect, and that's what you learn in step 2. In step 3, we use trial closers to get a commitment. Because it doesn't matter if the prospect sees that they have a problem if they're not committed to solving that problem, and if they're not committed to solving that problem with you, and if they're not willing to solve that problem today. So the commitment, it talks about how to integrate the prospect making a commitment during the sales presentation that in fact this product will solve the problem that they're acknowledging that they have. And then, and only then, do I do a full sales presentation. And the sales presentation isn't about the product. The sales presentation is about illustrating how the benefits of the product or service is going to solve their problem. People are interested in them. They're not interested in you, and they're not interested in your product. They're interested in the benefits they get if they were to invest in your product or service. And that's what the 7-step sales presentation is about. So in step 4, you learn how to do that presentation. You learn how to incorporate all the advantages of the approach, the qualification, and the commitment into your sales presentation. And when you do an effective sales presentation, that takes you to a pre-close. And the reason I say a pre-close is because when does the close actually start? But I'll give you a second to think about it. In my experience, the close is not a separate step. We think the close is kind of like being on the stage. You know, you give your line, the curtain rises, and then you give your line. The other person says something, and you give your line. The scene ends, and you take a break. Then the scene starts again, and you give your line. And then the other person says something, and you give your line, and then the curtain comes down. We act like that the entire process are these separate steps that are not integrated and a part of each other. The truth is, this close starts with the very first content. And you're closing throughout the process. From setting the appointment all the way through, that establishes the tone of the process, and that is how you set the close up. So the pre-close is talking about how to pivot from your sales presentation, integrating the commitments to start the pre-close. And that takes you right into the step 6, which is the close. And the close is a writing close. So I always tell salespeople that when I'm in a home or when I'm in a business, I take all my paperwork out and I put it on the desk so that that's an integrated part of the sales process. What I don't want to do is spend all my time and energy with a prospect, then reach in my briefcase, pull a piece of paper out, an application, contract, or whatever it is, and have that pulling that paper out of my briefcase is a nonverbal way to say to the prospect, it's your turn to object. Because as soon as I do that, they're going to say, oh, I'm not going to buy it. So the close is the writing close, and there's a very specific step for doing that, and I'll cover that in the close. Finally, we're always told to get referrals, right? And what happens when you ask for a referral? Have you had the experience you ask for a referral? And we usually always do it by saying something similar to, maybe not exactly, I'm sure yours is different, but similar to, you know, Mr. Jones, I appreciate your business today. As you know, I earn my business is built on referrals. Who do you know I can help with? Whatever. And the answer prospects always give us is, I don't know anybody, right? Isn't that frustrating? I don't know anybody. So I call it the introduction instead of the referral. There are specific ways of asking for introductions to other people. And when you ask these questions in the way that I'm going to teach you to ask these questions, you will always get a name. When you ask the question in the way that engages them in the behaviors that are predictable with people, you always get a name. And that's why the 7 steps are so important for you. So let's scroll down here a little bit. Here's what you're going to get from it. When you get done with these lessons, you're going to be able to open a sales conversation by selling off the wall. And you can sell off the wall whether you're in someone's home, in someone's business. You can sell off the wall, as I have done today. You can sell off the wall whether you're selling online, social media, on the telephone. Selling off the wall is a very specific psychology of engaging people in the things that matter to them. So you're going to be able to walk away with that. It's a sales technique that's been used for years. It's kind of a lost art, and I'm going to teach that to you. You're also going to learn how to ask effective questions. And I know the open-ended questions and closed-ended questions, but there's a whole bunch of other questions that are extremely effective at getting people to disclose the type of problems that they want to solve. Remember, you sell the problem, not the product. So we're going to talk about questions. We're going to talk about the psychology of the questions. When we get done using the Fact Finder, you're going to be able to ask questions that when the prospect answers it, will tell you what problem they're interested in solving. Then we're going to talk about relevant solutions. The commitment questions that you ask when you're doing the commitment part in step 3, those commitment questions set up the pre-close. So it's very important that you walk away from just a training on step 6 to have some specific commitment questions you can ask. So when the prospect answers that question, you can go straight to the pre-close and the close. Then we're going to talk about the cost. The cost is done in the pre-close. And here's the challenge that salespeople have. This is the challenge I had with the cost all the time. I was often intimidated by the cost. So in other words, when I gave the price to my prospect, I almost gave it apologetically. I almost gave it in a way where I expected the prospect to object to the price. And that's a fallacy. That's a fallacy because we're projecting our own issues into the prospect. What I've found over the years is that the price is simply a validation of the value of the product and the value of the service that I bring to the table. In fact, if I've done my job correctly in the qualification and the commitment part of it, I should already have an idea of what their price range is. I should already have a commitment that if I'm within that price range, that it only makes sense today to move forward. The price should not be an inhibitor to the sale. The price should be the icing on the cake. The price should validate the value of the product and the value of your service. And we're going to talk about that. And in all of these, we're going to talk about the verbal and nonverbal cues of each step. I know that we're always talking about handling objections, but the secret of handling objections is to know where the objections come up at and when you answer those objections. And that's one of the things you're going to get in all 7 of these lessons here. The last two is we're going to talk about closing the sale. I said a few minutes ago, the close begins with the very first contact. So we're going to talk about the psychology of that sale, and we're going to talk about the psychology of the decision-making process for the prospect. And lastly, we're going to end the lessons with talking about how to get introductions. You're going to love that lesson on how to get an introduction, because the questions you're going to ask, in fact, it's going to be 3 words you're going to use, and then you're going to tack on the questions to those 3 words. And every time you do that, you're going to get a name. You're going to get a name from somebody. So the key will be how to convert the names you get into introductions. Anybody can get a name, but converting that to introductions. So here's what I would tell you. For today, in today's marketplace, it's not enough for a company to have great products or provide great customer service. That's not enough anymore. We have to maintain relationships with our prospects. We have to own the wallet share that we pick up in the house. That means that when we leave that house or leave that business, that customer, we went from a prospect to a customer, that customer now sees us as the resource that they will go to when they have a question or problem around whatever your product or service is. And the reason they're going to do that is because we develop a long-term relationship with that prospect. That's why it's very important that you learn to sell the problem, not the product. When you sell the problem, they see you as a solution. They don't see the product as the solution. They see you as the solution. The product simply provides the benefits with the features that you're bringing to them. So you sell the problem, and they buy the solution. That way, you're building a business relationship that enhances the customer, enhances their business. It distinguishes you from every other sales presentation. When I do the script training, one of the things I talk to the salespeople about was, are you using the same script as every other salesperson is using? Because if you're using the same script, the same presentation, and the same close as every other salesperson, then to your prospect, who are you? Aren't you just another salesperson? Let's make you different. Let's make you someone special. Let's make you Dr. B to your prospect. So that's what you can expect as you go through the 7-step sales process. And here's another thing I want to tell you. I'm going to finish this little introduction talk with this. This is not a cure to everything. You're not going to go through each of these steps and then walk out the door, and in a month period of time, you're making $100,000 a year. That's not the way it happens. And the reason for that is we tend to have habits. We tend to focus on the things that are in front of us and not the things that will make us grow. So as you go through these lessons, here's what you're going to find yourself doing. Oh, I already know that. I can't see myself doing that. I'm not sure that's going to work. We go through these type of trainings and resources, and we look at them to rule them out, to rule things out, not rule them in. Here's what my counsel to you is doing. Go through these trainings in order to understand the psychology behind them. Don't go through them in order to rule them out. You've already invested yourself in the program. invest your family in the program, invest your customers in the program. So go through each step and pick one thing. Just pick one thing you'll do different for 21 days. It takes 21 days to create a habit. So in 21 days, you can change your business. This program's not going to do it for you. Information alone is not going to change your business. You utilizing that information and then learning from the way you utilize it is what's going to make your business grow. I'm Lloyd Lofton. The way I sell isn't the way Bob sells or Frank sells or Tony sells. So when I see a script, when I see the wording, I have to make it my personality. I can't do it the way somebody else did. It has to fit my personality. So you're going to see key phrases in here, and the reason you see key phrases instead of an entire script is the key phrase is a trigger for you, so that it triggers in you the psychology of the principle, gets you the response that you need from the prospect to move to the next step. It's not the whole script. It's not like an absolute word-for-word presentation, because that wouldn't be real. It is the psychology of each of the steps, and it's important that you understand the psychology. And you're only going to understand it if you implement the psychology. So go through each of the 7 steps. Pick out one concept on each step. So there's 7 steps. It should take you 7 weeks to practice each step for an entire week. That way it will create a habit in you. You can refine it. You can make it an integrated part of your sales personality, so that by the 7th week, just over 21 days, you will have the process down that will take your business to the next level. You will break that income barrier that has been challenging you for years. You will finally be able to give your family one nice Christmas. Your prospects will buy more from you. You'll get more wallets here in the house, and you will feel better about yourself and about your business. I'm available for you. You can always email me. You can always put your comments in there, and I'm happy to respond to you. The 7-step sales presentation is about selling the problem, not the solution. So good luck to you. Dive into it. 1 lesson a week for 7 weeks. Change your habits, and you'll make a lot of money. All right, guys. Take care.